Thank you for joining us again. I'm here with Professor Sonia Rankin. We're on the last segment here. I know there was a lot of things I wanted to ask you, and I'm probably ending up short there. But I wanted to bring up something before I forget. It's Black History Month, February. Let's go into just the basic history so people know. I believe it started out in 1926.
Right.
Now it's all over the United States. Am I right?
Right, yeah. Carter G. Woodson started this at a time when...
1926, was I right on that?
Right, yes.
Okay.
Carter G. Woodson
I didn't want to miss
started this, and it was really, at that time, Negro History Week. Now, people don't know, but the week he selected was what we call, Valentine's Week. It was because that was the time period to celebrate two individuals in particular, Frederick Douglass's birthday and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And so Negro History Week was centered around that time. And this was a time, if you think about 1926, we had just barely gotten to the place where there was this idea that there was free education for everyone, K through 12 as you will. So when that was still being established, when it was still being rankled over in the South on how to implement that, there was still nothing documented that kind of told the Negro story. And Carter G. Woodson would find that there was this need for Black American children in the South and the North to really take some time to learn and hear a story they weren't hearing anywhere else. It wasn't in the popular news or press. It wasn't shared where their parents worked. They weren't hearing it in schools. And so that was the start. It would branch from that week to a month. And that really the month of February is set aside to study.
For the entire month?
Yes,
from
for the
the 1st to the
entire month.
28th, I think.
And so you probably are hearing a lot of murmuring now, we should do away with it, this idea that Black history is American history, just do it every day. But what I come to regard it as, I told my kids I've got a couple of favorite holidays, and this is one, my birthday, Christmas, and Black History Month, because, if you think about it, for the majority of religious practices across the world, there is a date set aside for something. Many cultures will have a Sabbath, they'll have the Lord's Day, they will have a time set aside for a particular purpose to remember and to cultivate. And I'll get the scripture wrong. I think Proverbs 22:28, which really talks about, do not forget the landmarks set by your forefathers. And that's what I like to think about Black History Month is this time when we sit down and remember the landmarks, remember what the struggle was, remember what the story was, because it's very easy for, if our children today are not told the story, particularly in the Black community, then they don't quite understand why there are structures that are still so unequal. They just kind of look around and say, well, I don't get it. I've worked hard. My parents work hard. Why are there still so many structural things? Why will I be stopped by the police more than my friends, particularly as so many people of color are now living in multicultural communities?
Correct, yeah.
They don't understand why there's still structural inequality. And so when we take the time to explain to them that there were these things that occurred, and there's a people that emerged out of this battle that are strong, that are resilient, that have a joy about them, that celebrate, that achieve and survive and thrive, if we don't take that time to do that, our kids will never hear it.
Do you feel that President Obama did enough for the youth of African Americans? Or do you think that...
Boy, it's such a hard one, because almost every step he takes, someone elsewhere is taking a step or two back. And it's very hard. It's very hard because what part do we want done? President Obama has advocated that he believes the rising tide raises all ships.
Correct.
If the tide rises, everyone will benefit across the board. But unfortunately, some ships are much lower than others. And so what does it take to implement a difference? There are some things you can't do in our laws anymore. And there are some things that require strict scrutiny if you are going to do them. So what else can you do? Well, do we make sure that they're more fun? So when we're talking about community college, right? One of the biggest things that's really holding our students back are how much the cost of college has raised as opposed to the federal support that was once in place. So think back to the GI Bill, right? Mm-hmm. College covered. Think back to when Pell Grants were first established in the 70s. At that time, Pell Grants, I think, covered like 67% of what it cost to go to college. Today, it only covers like 20-something%.
Correct, yeah. It's
a
lot lower now.
Right, it's a lot lower. It did not raise at the same rate of the inflation of the cost of college. So while more people were told to go, while more people were given opportunities to go, the federal support that had helped so many just a generation before was no longer there, or is insufficient. So really, to look into what it is, what's getting in the way of a lot of our students achieving and thriving at the collegiate level. It's this economic thing that students are compelled to work in order to pay for it, as opposed to setting aside the time for their studies, which is always much easier, and that's, you know, easier said than done, that when we have so many non-traditional students and our veterans who are coming back and acclimating into the classroom and are such an asset to our colleges. How do we get all of these people with all these different experiences to all be able to, for their ships all to rise?
Exactly, yeah. I personally think that it will change quite a bit, the education system, because it has to be reformed. You would agree with me, because right now we're kind of in $1 trillion debt. I don't know if we can pay this debt. And I'm thinking you might agree with me on that this is kind of a dangerous situation for us as a nation, because we're unable to compete with the rest of the world if we keep climbing this debt. So how do you see that resolving at some point? You don't think that they would get into the higher education now that they have done the community college? Or?
I'll have to get you a good economics professor on to play with the money more.
Yeah.
But really, you know, I think, what are they getting out of college, right? I particularly, you know, what do I actually believe on that? I'm a big believer that college is supposed to, a colleague of mine mentions that college is supposed to make you interesting, right? You're going to be stuck with you the next 80 years. It's supposed to make you a bit exposed, right? What do I know? What have I learned about myself? We allow students to go to college so that they can get kind of this winnowing time, that they can kind of be tested in fire, find out their resiliency, find out what they're actually really good at, which might be different than what others have said, right? The reason I look at this community college and higher and four-year institution conversation is our community college does a fantastic job with so many employment opportunities. I think like 60%, 70% of our nurses come from community college. Our first responders will get educated there. And what I want us is to start thinking about not just that nurse who comes through and gets her 2-year degree from there, but I want her to start saying, okay, how do we change the system altogether? How do we get in and do something even more amazing, right? I'm always saying, I want to find that person who thought they were meant to be a mechanic and turn them into a mechanical engineer.
I know, that's a great note to end. Almost out of time there. We'll have you back. I think there was a lot of questions I wanted to ask you, but we're short on time there. But it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for coming.
We'll have you back. I'm sure Sonia will seek you out again to bring you back. Okay.
Happy to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for watching, and that's it for us. We'll see you next time.